On this edition of the program, Elon trashes the one big beautiful bill. Trump needs deals. We create a tier list from where they may or may not come from. And turnout didn't sink Kamala in 2024. That's according to the most comprehensive study that we are going to see about it. Michael Cohen joins the program to break down all the deets. It's all coming up.
The following is brought to you by Just Another Pilot.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Politics program for June 4th, 2025. Your old pal Justin Robert Young joining you here in Austin, Texas. Happy June to everybody who is listening here on our big show, our Wednesday show, the 1st of June. Used to be Pride Month, before Trump came back. I still believe it's Pride Month. I still believe, as I always have, that gays get superpowers in June. Some of them can leap tall buildings. They can run fast. They have telepathy. So watch what you're thinking. We have a lot to get to here, up to and including some news that is breaking just as I am recording this about Elon Musk and the one big beautiful bill. We also have Michael Cohen coming up. He is going to talk to us about the Catalyst report. This is the best data scraping, super nerdy numbers look into the 2024 election. I don't know. I can already hear you. And I have a really defensive intro to this interview. What are you talking about 2024? There's so much going on. We talk about it. We talk about the other stuff too. All right. We're talking about that now. That's early. But also, if you want to know about coalitions, if you want to know about the changing ground in which elections are fought, you got to know about this. This is vegetables, man. You gotta get it. So you're not surprised when this stuff happens. And there's some really, really fundamental shifts that are happening to our electorate in a way that makes elections that are going to happen from here on out different than every election that happened previous to this. Some really, really, really big tectonic plate level shifting, but you're going to want to listen to that in a little bit. This isn't even in my notes, so we're just going to go straight off the dome for this. Elon Musk has trashed the one big beautiful bill, using his bully pulpit on X to not only trash it as disgusting, but also to retweet Rand Paul by saying that the $5 trillion that it could balloon the deficit is something that absolutely cannot happen. Elon retweeting that with an American flag. Is that interesting? Well, I do believe that it is, because Donald Trump this morning on Truth Social said that Rand Paul was always a no, that he was untalented. This was a tweet that was reverberating throughout conservative America, especially through Congress, they're trying to get this bill through. They don't want headwinds on it. Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, who passed this bill, came out and said, hey, look, I talked to Elon yesterday for 20 minutes. We had an amiable conversation. He didn't bring a lot of this kind of stuff up. I think it's really disappointing, but, EV credits are going away. Mike Johnson was asked, wait a minute, you think that that's a part of it? He said, I don't know. He sells electric cars. EV credits help people buy electric cars. Maybe he's a little mad. How does this affect anything? Well, it's not great Because let's remember that Elon Musk isn't just a very influential and popular person in the current MAGA coalition. He's also a big old fundraiser. So you got to be a little careful how you talk about old Elon. Because maybe Elon will put money into somebody that you don't like. Maybe Elon won't take your call when you're asking for money. My guess, the EV mandates that were part of the Inflation Reduction Act, they have a certain sunset period. I'm going to take a wild guess and say that that one gets pushed out a little bit. It gets pushed out. Another low-key possible reason why this is happening with Elon, one of the parts of the One Big Beautiful Bill is a federal ban on state-level laws for artificial intelligence. This is a response to a law that was going to be passed in California, but Elon's not a huge fan of the current leader in artificial intelligence, OpenAI. This is a longer story than we have time for on a political podcast. But the short version is that Elon Musk co-founded OpenAI, didn't believe in its mission at a certain point, left OpenAI, tried to hire a bunch of people from OpenAI to Tesla, and then the people that were left at OpenAI wound up inventing GPT-3, then GPT-4, ChatGPT, and they are now the leaders in the clubhouse, at least in terms of frontier LLM development. Although there's a lot of players in this space, so I don't want to discourage anybody else, including XAI and Grok, which is what Elon has since made. But Elon was a supporter of a pause in AI development because at the time, the worry was this technology was going too fast and we were going to accidentally make Skynet. So Elon also supported that California law that this was a law in response to. So I don't know if Elon got religion on the inside of politics. I certainly know that if you've got a front row seat to the sausage factory, it might turn your stomach. And eventually, once you get the hell out of DC, you might get to tweeting about it. Possibly. Or it could be EV mandates and the fact that he hates OpenAI. Two other things that Elon very much cares about. We don't know. Either way, Elon Musk, welcome to the resistance. Another quick thing I want to get out of the way here. Iowa. You guys know that I am a unashamed supporter of the Iowa caucus being the first in the nation. I come of this honestly. I have covered 3 cycles now in terms of being in all of the early states. And I am here to tell you that the one state that cares the most about listening to candidates, going to see candidates speak, that have their own opinions about how they are going to rank all the stuff, that will go out in a frigid negative 30 degrees to go participate in their caucuses, are Iowans. I believe, for a few different reasons, that they deserve to be the first contest in the nation. I believe if you cannot play in Iowa from the Democratic side specifically, well, you got a problem. Now, Joe Biden, as part of what is now looked at pretty roundly as an ability for him to stifle a primary challenge, he moved that calendar around. He put South Carolina first. Well, South Carolina had their Democratic meetings, their spring, summer meetings. It involves James Clyburn's fish fry. But it was there with a lot of journalists. Word started going around. South Carolina is definitely not going to be number 1. For primaries, New Hampshire would be number one because Iowa's a caucus. All I'm saying is this. It's now in play that we could go back to normal. And Democrats could have their contest lockstep in line with the Republicans. It's just a great opportunity for the press. It's a great opportunity for the citizens of that state to just be able to have it. Now, does that mean that Iowa plays an outsized influence in American politics? Yeah, someone's got to do it. But it's a cheap state to buy television in. It's a cheap state to travel to. And you've got generations of operatives that already know how to work it. And this is my biggest thing one more time, the people care. People care in Iowa. They care in New Hampshire. They don't give a rat's ass anywhere else. I'm telling you. They don't care in Nevada. They don't care in Nevada, sorry. They don't care in South Carolina. They don't. I've been there to cover it. You can't walk into a random bar or restaurant and have a conversation with everybody about politics. You can do that in New Hampshire. You can do that in Des Moines. Just saying. Okay. Another thing. This is like a little mini update. We're still going to do an update later, just so you guys know. Okay. I want to say June, pretty big month for deals. I've been saying this for weeks now. I said that May might be Donald Trump's most consequential. And indeed, he wound up ratcheting down the biggest pain point in his trade war, and that was China. He got the boats moving. And I also heard a couple weeks ago that there were some trade deals in the chamber. We saw one signed by the United Kingdom, but we didn't see any from the other two countries that I had heard were ready to go. One of them was India. They wound up getting into a military thing with Pakistan. The other one was Australia. I have no idea what was going on with that. But I will say June has even more pressure on it. Here's why. First, at the end of this month, we're done with the 90-day pause from Liberation Day. That means theoretically all those insane tariffs go back. Okay? We'll get to the economics again in a second, but I want to frame this a little bit. Donald Trump is the deal man. One of the biggest cornerstones of his campaign, both in 2016 and in 2020 and in 2024, was that everybody else is an idiot because they just don't know how to make deals. They don't. They don't. They're morons. They're politicians. They're not business people. They don't know what it means to take a seat at a table and talk turkey with somebody. Make sure that you go ahead and square away all the little details, and then you make sure that you dot the I's and you cross the T's. Put her there, pal. We're making deals. Donald Trump does that. Donald Trump is known for that. And trust me, if you let him talk about it, he'll tell you. But here's the problem. When that's his solution for everything, what happens when things don't get done? Donald Trump has his own philosophy when it comes to foreign policy. He believes in maximum diplomacy. Let's talk to everybody. Let's continue to schedule meetings. Let's make sure that we get this thing done. We don't just want it to die on the vine. This is the opposite of the State Departments that have preliminary conversations so they can have chats, so they can have discussions, so they can eventually come to a place where in the next year and a half, we can think about drafting a memo to have a meeting. No, he wants to get in there. Biden wouldn't talk to Putin. I'm going to talk to Putin. Biden wouldn't talk to Hamas. I'm going to talk to Hamas. We're going to make sure that this stuff goes. And there was a moment where this strategy seemed to be paying dividends. All of a sudden, Zelensky, very belligerent. He winds up getting talked to the position where he's ready to sit down and make a deal. And then the ball goes to Putin's court. Putin is still bombing stuff in Ukraine, and Trump's a little vexed. He's like, wait a minute. Oh, geez. Putin's gone crazy. That's what Trump said on Truth Social. Okay. Well, over the weekend, Ukraine launched one of the most audacious drone attacks we have ever seen in world history. Took out a reported 1/3 of Russia's air fleet. That's crazy. It was a plan that was 1.5 years in the making and involved advanced drone technology. And it was said that the United States had no idea it was happening. I don't believe it, but that's what was said. And that is what it is. But regardless of whether or not you believe that this gets us closer or further away from more hostilities, the reality is that there was a peace negotiation 48 hours from when that attack happened. Doesn't usually seem to be the prelude to peace, but we will see. It feels like that situation is now farther away. Let's swing down south. You have this Israeli-Hamas situation. So there was a conversation between Israel, between Hamas, Steve Witkoff, again, the man that Donald Trump has deployed around the world to try to get deals here. Witkoff says Hamas put in things in the deal. We're now moving backwards. Tack that on with a controversial new aid distribution program and an ongoing information war between these two sides. And that one feels even further away. So if Donald Trump, the golden deal maker, can't solve foreign policy, then what about him solving the thing that he did cause? He is the one who kicked the plug to the world's economy out of the wall and then said, please tell me what you will pay me to plug it back in. Well, let's start with China. China, they put a pause in. And then they said, all right, well, let's do a few things that are good faith efforts. And America lowered their tariffs and China lowered their tariffs, not to where they were before, but lower than the embargo level. And then one of the things was, okay, China, well, you still need to give us rare earth metals. We need magnets. Well, they haven't shown up. Whoopsie. Scott Bessent was on television on Sunday saying, well, maybe it's a glitch in the system. But we might be back into F City when it comes to China. It doesn't seem like a deal's closer. And then we get back to that Liberation Day pause. And so I would like to now tell you that as I speak with you on June 4th, here's the official tier list of deals and what they would mean for Donald Trump's presidency. All right. Bottom tier, good. It's good they made a deal, but what does it really matter? Middle tier, this is a huge thing, but not as big. Everyone's still going to be looking northward. And then the top tier, well, these are big deals. These are things that could actually kind of change things. All right. So let's do tier 3. Here's 2 that don't really matter. Canada, which is going to be a USMCA thing. That's what I've heard the Trump administration is telling people in Congress. That's not a thing you're going to do a unilateral deal. We already have a trade deal with them. We just want to make sure that they are fulfilling XYZ in the USMCA, blah, 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 blah. United Kingdom made their deal. Here are the other 2. Brazil and the Netherlands. Now, the Netherlands is part of EU, so fold that in. Here are the middle tier, all right? That was red, this is yellow. South Korea, that's a big one. Another technological leader. Japan, big one, especially when we're talking about automotive. Same thing with South Korea. And then you got 3 countries that are involved in the EU, Germany, Ireland, and Switzerland. All right. So those are all going to have to be figured out amongst this EU stuff. But here's the number one. All right. This is the big tier, the green tier. If any of these come down the pike, it is a very, very, very big deal. So the first one is Mexico. Again, that's a USMCA country. So that's our number one trading partner. It has to go into the top tier. But still, this isn't going to come from the Liberation Day negotiations. Here are two countries that are adjacent to China. Vietnam. It's where a lot of stuff has gone. When the heat started coming down on China, a lot of stuff offshore to Vietnam. Taiwan, huge semiconductor industry. If you think we need magnets from China, man, we need semiconductors from Taiwan. And we can build them here, but it's going to take longer than we are talking about in this time frame. And then, of course, there is China. I don't think that there's any bigger trade target, to be totally honest with you. But here's my last one in the top tier, and it's India. India is a massive trading partner, and there is belief that they could be bigger. There's belief that there is industry that could switch from China to India. And they've got a large enough population that makes enough money that America would like to sell more into that market. And there are a lot of provincial laws that prevent them, which is why what I have heard is that a lot of these conversations aren't necessarily just about tariff barriers coming down. It's also non-tariff trade barriers, like provincial laws or onerous VAT taxes, that kind of stuff. America wants special privileges. So those are my tier lists. If any of those things come to pass, react accordingly. All right, let's talk 2024. Let's get to Michael Cohen. There is a reality of elections, which is that there's what we know in terms of the result, and then there's what we know about how we got to the result a few months later. And so I know before anybody even types it into the comments, why are we talking about 2024? We should be talking about X, Y, and Z right now. Here's the reason why we're going to talk about 2024, because this is the most substantial look at what exactly happened in this election that we have right now. And we brought on the man who wrote the book on the modern political campaign. Michael Cohen, welcome back to the show. We are discussing the Catalyst Report. You've done your homework. Welcome.
I did. Thank you so much for having me. Apologies to everybody, but we are going to talk about 2024. And I think it actually is pretty useful to look at it since we're going to be going into a new campaign season pretty soon. Because campaigns are always on. So
if you don't know about what happened in the past, what are you building to go forward? And when we talk about everything we're about to talk about in the midterms and then for the next election, coalitions, turnout, what strategy worked, what strategy didn't work. This is where all the stuff, when you read the books, when you look at data like this, it all comes together and you can get at least a good starting point as to how you are going to either maintain your power, as the Republicans are looking to do, or to seize it if you are the Democrats. And so, were there anything in this report, the Catalyst Report, which does a very good job, it is very reputable in terms of looking at voter files and census data and what we saw in terms of the electoral results. Was there anything that surprised you as you read through it?
Yeah, I think the one thing that's a shocker to me, and I think that's a shocker to people on the left, I'm sure, because they believed that the higher the turnout you have, the more Democrats are able to win. And as it turns out, the high turnout actually helped Trump. And so turnout was actually about 2% lower overall, but it was 0.4% higher in all the battlegrounds.
Yes.
And so
then 2020, which was 2020, at a huge high.
Which was historically high, right? And so when you look at it and you're saying, okay, well, where did Trump spend their money? Team Trump spent their money on the battlegrounds. So they actually juiced turnout. And in a high turnout election, they won. Now that is completely flipping the whole script on everything we know about politics. all the way through the past 50 years of politics, where high turnout elections usually favor Democrats, low turnout elections usually favor Republicans. Actually, we're seeing that flip now, because if you look at it now in the Trump era, the off-year elections, which are lower turnout, are actually favoring Democrats, whereas high turnout elections are actually favoring Republicans. So this was huge. I mean, looking at it from the perspective of, okay, well, overall turnout was a little bit lower, but in the states that really mattered, it was higher. And where did it matter? All the battleground states. And Trump swept all of them. So to me, that's the headline when you look at all of this. Not all the other things that we sort of have heard in bits and pieces, throughout, and that I reported on in my book, and that other people have reported on in substantial postmortems from the election. I think that that's really the key here. That you cannot, if you're a Democrat, say, well, all we got to do is get all of our people out. All we got to do is get out young people. All we got to do is get out people of color. All of those things were flipped, and so when you look at it. There's no safe haven if you are a Democrat right now. If you're looking at it and, if you're a Republican, you're saying, hey, we're in pretty good shape going into the midterms, probably better than we've ever been, when we've had the presidency and looking at what's going to happen next. And so to me, this is not just like looking back. It's also looking at what, the state of play is going to be going into this.
So that I would like to double down on that and take a look at it from a slightly different perspective. One of the things that has been repeated often about Kamala Harris's loss was that Democrats didn't show up. And yes, you see that in terms of nationally, there was a slight dip, but all that dip came in these non-competitive states. In the states that would have delivered her the presidency, the vaunted get out the vote machine of Kamala Harris did well. It turned out the people that they needed to turn out that were, turn outable, that they knew were going to go vote for Democrats. The people that didn't vote for them were persuasion voters, low propensity voters, and the new voters. I think Catalyst did a really good job of talking about how the Democratic coalition has been durable in that they have these certain core constituencies, some of which were gaining, like white college educated voters. But they could always count on young voters. They could always count on black voters and Latino voters. That is no longer the case. There's now meaningful erosions in that. And more specifically, and this might be even more troubling, the new refresh of that. You always need new young voters, right? Young voters don't stay young forever. That now seems to be changing. And there has been a meaningful drop in terms of support for young voters. So the Democratic machine did what it did. It was what it was saying. It was the message that lost them. And that's what this data told me.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at some of these groups that you're just talking about, I mean, black men, plus 10% for Trump, Latino men, plus 16% for Trump. Young voters moved 6%.
These are compared to 2020. Yeah.
2020. Yeah, I mean, 2024 to 2020. I mean, young voters, 6% towards Trump. Millennials and Zs down from 60% to 54%. You're barely getting half of young voters. I mean, that is the core Democratic constituency going back to the 1960s. You're looking at Gen X down from 50 to 47, so it wasn't us. Boomers from 49 to 49 to 47, and it wasn't them. So, everyone who's blaming boomers and blaming Gen X, the young people just said, forget about it. This is not what I want. Get out of here, and there's a lot of reasons about this. I mean, from my perspective, when I looked at this, all of this added up to persuasion over activation.
Yes.
I mean, I've been preaching this now for about 5 years in 2 different books, that we need to go to more persuasion instead of activation. And because we have the best technology now, that can really lower the costs on persuasion, that can actually reach more people through technology, and you can make it a lot faster. And so from my perspective, when I was looking at this, I was saying, well, hey, look, congratulations, Trump, Team Trump. You did a great job. You actually persuaded voters to move from one group of people to another,
which is very hard. Very hard.
Which is the hardest thing in politics. Literally the hardest thing in politics to persuade people.
Professor Cohen, if you wouldn't mind schooling the audience here, could you just walk through what that line in the sand is, and specifically that decision? If somebody walked in a campaign in, let's say, 2000 or 1998 and they said, hey, I want to focus on persuasion over activation, just what those two things are and why it was kind of a non-starter for so long.
Yeah, so activation is you're in a tight election and you feel like if I could just boost my turnout by a couple more percent, if we could knock on some more doors, we have a really good get out the vote operation, if we could identify those voters who are coming in and out of the electorate, if we just grab a few more of those people, we're going to win.
Yeah.
And that's not even
likely voters. You know that they are likely going to
likely
be for
voters.
You just got to bring them
likely
out.
for you. Yes. So not only are they likely voters, they're also likely for you. And
yes.
So all you have to do is just get them to go, which is much easier than saying, hey, you know what? Instead of having, cookies for dessert, you're going to have fruit for dessert. That's persuasion, right?
Yes.
Cookies are, I just need to keep you at the table for a few more minutes and then you get the cookies, right? Yeah. Whereas persuasion is I'm going to keep you at the table and I'm going to give you fruit and you're going to like it. Yes. And that is very different situation. And, everyone has that in their own lives where you're trying to persuade somebody to do something or to change their mind. It is really, really hard, particularly in the situation where we are right now, where we are so polarized. It's even more difficult to actually move people from one party to another, as opposed to, in the late 90s when there was two parties that were much closer to each other. Now they're much further apart. And so to get somebody to move from Bush to Clinton is much easier than trying to get someone moving from Biden, to Trump, or from, Kamala Harris to Trump. I mean, those are two much, much higher bars, and you have to invest a lot more money. You have to invest a lot more time, and you also have to have the right kind of messaging that might actually move people. And I would argue that Trump found ways to move people off of Kamala Harris. Even, some people, hated those issues. They move people.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I would also assume that back in the 90s and 2000s, in a pre-social media age, it was probably pretty hard to persuade people money-wise. Like if I were to walk into the office of a campaign in 1998 and say, hey, we need to really work hard on obviously these few key issues, but we should spend more of our money on ads than we would on door knocking to make sure that we alert people that the election is this certain date, then that would be something that would be received poorly, because advertising in an era where it was really radio, television, and newspapers was pretty expensive. Now you can do a lot more targeted stuff via social media, or as we saw with the Trump campaign, you can just get free coverage by doing novel things like being on podcasts. Has the money issue changed in terms of persuasion? Are we maybe entering into a world where persuasion is, you have a little bit of a slipstream, especially for key communities?
Yeah, I think the reason why persuasion is becoming more and more interesting is because we're able to figure out who the people are who need to be persuaded. And so in the beginning of the campaign, Tony Fabrizio, one of my former mentors, and his team, they identified 7 million voters in the battleground states. And they said, okay, we're going to spend all of our money on these people. These are the people that actually really matter. Yeah. And so we need to find out what is persuadable to them, what are the issues they actually care about, and then when should we contact them and where, right? Where are they paying attention? Are they paying attention on social media?
Yeah.
For some of these people, they're not paying attention to anything. And so that you had to mail them. You literally mailed them, flyers, like you were running like, a local sheriff's campaign instead for president. So I think that they were very nimble in deciding, and also non-specific in saying, well, this platform is absolutely much better than this platform. It was like, where are the people at? Can I find them? And so to me, like all of that information now is gettable, where in the 90s, we didn't have that. We just basically had, D's and R's in certain states, and you could knock on doors and bring people out. So it was much easier. Whereas now you can figure out, okay, we're not just going to spend a lot of money on TV because that's sort of a default. We can now spend targeted money in specific areas, because don't forget the Trump campaign was totally outspent by the Harris, campaign. And Harris, walked in with a nice inheritance from the Biden folks who gave him a whole bunch of money to start out with.
And then I think racked up another like $1.5 billion within 90 days. So
yeah. And there was definitely a group of people who were sitting on their hands saying, okay, I'm not giving you Biden any more money. And as soon as she jumped in, there was money. So the problem wasn't money. It was really message and strategy more than anything else. And it's pretty clear that Trump really understood who Harris was more than Biden and then Harris's team understood who Trump was to the electorate.
I do think in terms of identifying those voters, that was a strategy that was, for people that are inside, the discussion, the discourse of electioneering, it was kind of mocked, because there's been many, many campaigns that have been waylaid by the idea of finding the mythical voter that will turn the tide if you just, told them the right thing. It is a pretty high risk, although a high reward strategy. And the Trump campaign, I think Trump even had like a quote once about like dynamiting Doug off his couch or whatever. But like that was that strategy. It was find a person that doesn't vote, does not consider themselves to be political, but falls into that right age range. Usually young men into sports, into anime, anti-woke, and believes that this is a thing that it's worth going out and voting for because they can be persuaded that this is an important moment in time. And if you don't act right now, then your life will be different. But to make somebody go from a non-voter to a voter, and that's another thing we saw in these numbers, that's huge. And if anything, if there's an electoral lesson of Donald Trump's 3 runs for president, it is that you really can't totally give up on that dead cable, that element of the electorate. I think we're up to like 60+% of America that voted, and
64.1 in 2024.
In 2024. So it's like, before it was lower than that. You can't give up on those people. I mean, if you want to really change the face of things, you got to identify those people that don't vote and figure out ways to get them to do it, figure out those issues.
Yeah. I mean, how many times have we talked about this on the podcast where we felt like Trump had a ceiling, right?
Yes.
Trump's ceiling is 47%. Trump's ceiling is 48%. Well, what if Trump's ceiling wasn't that, right?
Yeah.
What if you're running a campaign and you decide, hey, you know what? We need more people.
Yeah.
Okay. So how are we going to, who are the people who would be available to us in a perfect world, right? Okay. Well, then how do we get them? How do we reach them? What do we say to them when they come and talk to us? How can we put our guy in a situation where he is attractive as a candidate to these people? And going on Joe Rogan, you know what? Black and Latino men, they watch Joe Rogan, using, the video that they had of, the 2 guys on the podcast saying, Kamala's for transgender, sex changes in jail. Get out of here. I don't want that. I mean, that was hugely powerful. That ad, by the way, closed with a Latino couple. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. So you look at it, they were very, very smart about who they put up front and then who they put at the back. They didn't put white guys in the front, white guys in the back.
No, and the 2 people you're talking about are DJ Envy and Charlamagne the God, who do the most popular black radio show in America, The Breakfast Club.
Exactly. Right.
And our Kamala surrogates,
right. And who are somewhat upset about the whole thing, but that's what they said. Right. And it's not like the Trump campaign backed away from it. They're like, well, you said it, dude. You said it on your podcast. It's out there. It's out there. Yeah. I'm going to use it. And whatever she said was out there too. And so to me, like when you look at how this campaign came together, it's reflected in these numbers from Catalyst. And it basically says that instead of just activation, they decided to grow the pie of people who might vote for Trump. They didn't get everybody, but they got more than they did. And that's how they won.
And when you look at the X's and O's, and this has now been documented enough that I think you can say that it's fact, is that both the Biden campaign and the Kamala campaign run by Jen O'Malley Dillon was very, very, very focused on building an extraordinarily sophisticated, high dollar, high volunteer, get out the vote operation. And they wound up hitting a ceiling to a place where they realized they needed more people. They needed to get more stuff. And I think it was in Fight. I think I wound up texting you this when I read it.
But I read that too. Yeah.
Yeah. That Fight had them.
Fight's a good book, by the way. Really
great book. Great book.
Yeah, really.
It is the best. The way I would give my awards.
It's the best in class. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would say it is by far the best. If you want to know what happened inside Kamala world as the election was being decided, nothing comes close to it. If you want to know what was going inside in Trump world, it's Alex Eisenstadt's Revenge. And if you want to know what was going on inside Biden world, it's Original Sin. And they all kind of like, when you put them all together, I feel like you get a pretty good 360 of those three campaign operations. But one of the things in Fight was that they realized they were running up against a ceiling of people that they could talk to. And they started going to households to knock on doors that, you know, were like iffy to be like activated. And they wound up activating Trump people, that they would just send their volunteers out to get yelled at by Trump supporters and to remind the Trump supporters when election day was.
Which has now happened in 3 straight elections. Okay. No, it has. They have not learned a thing. I mean, one of my former students, Dan Bram, who's a great student of mine from UCDC, and he worked on the Hillary Clinton campaign in Ohio, and he was knocking doors, and he was running a field operation in Ohio, and he got lists from Brooklyn. They would go and they would knock on doors and get their asses kicked all day. Yeah, and they'd email, they'd call, they'd shout, they'd send carrier pigeons back to Brooklyn. Please make the pain stop. And they're like, no, we believe in our data. Get out there, Skippy. You're just not seeing the whole picture yet. Well, they did. And Ohio went for Trump.
And Ohio has not been blue since.
Right. And what happened in 2020 is that the vaunted, field operation was stunted because of COVID. It probably helped Biden in certain cases because they didn't go out and piss off Trump voters and remind them, oh shit, I got to go vote in person, And so this time, no COVID. And they're like, let's go do it again. And they went right out again and they pissed off probably the same Trump voters, and just said, you know what? Yeah, we got to roll with it. But so they never really understood who their voter was, probably because of time. I mean, I would say I'll give them a little bit of grace that they didn't understand who a Kamala voter was versus a Biden voter. They didn't have enough time to do all the research. They just didn't. Okay. But they should know intuitively.
Well, also,
that
she didn't know what candidate she was. So it's like, how do you know a voter universe for a candidate that doesn't know whether or not they're progressive or they're a cop or they have a gun or they don't and they want to take the guns? Like you had no idea who she was by election day.
You know what? And here's the thing. When a candidate doesn't know who they are, it's a candidate issue. And one of the smarter things that I've heard over the past couple of weeks about Kamala was from Chuck Todd. And he was on Chris Eliz's podcast over the past couple of days. And he said, you know what? I don't think she really wanted any of this. I think that she wanted to go into law. She wanted to be AG. But then someone talked to her about being the next president of the United States. And it's hard to get out of your head, and you want me to be president someday. And then all of a sudden you're on a different track. And, I can see that. I can see that because if you wanted this since you were like 11, like Amy Klobuchar wanted it since she was like 11, like you have thought about it a million different ways to Sunday on what would happen if you got attacked by this guy or this person or this group and how I'm going to come back and what my answers are for everything. I don't think Kamala came to this as a kid. She came to this as a late adult. And I don't know that she was really all in on it. I mean, she's not talking like a candidate now. She didn't go to the fish fry, in South Carolina.
She didn't go to the California Dems thing. She's supposed to run for governor.
Yeah. I mean, does she just want to go out and practice law? I mean, if she does, hey, good for her. I was advocating that for my girl, Haley, just to go on, corporate boards and have a life. Yeah. And if she wants to go off and just, be a lawyer and have a life, there's plenty of
just be rich in LA.
Be rich in LA. Go to games. Be applauded, not be hated. Because as soon as you become governor, they're going to hate you. Because of course they're going to hate you. So from my perspective, I don't know. I don't know what's in her heart. I don't know what's in her brain. But it seems pretty clear that she didn't grow up wanting to be president of the United States like every other president except for, I don't know, Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump came to it late also, but he wanted it,
Well, my theory of the case with Trump was that beyond any of the personal grievance with Obama, which has been written about a lot, my assumption is that it's at some point, Donald Trump was just on a golf course for the millionth time with a politician he thought he was smarter than. And then
because he thinks he's smarter than everybody.
He thinks he's smarter than everybody.
Yes,
and so he's
exactly.
on the golf course with somebody, probably Lindsey Graham. And he's just like, well, this guy's an idiot. Well, I don't know why you just don't do X, Y, and Z. That's the way to do it. I'll just get out. When I go on Fox News, everybody retweets me because I say X, Y, and Z. It's easy. Why don't you just do it this way? What was different about Trump, and I will say this is something that Kamala doesn't have. Trump has a media eye, obviously, that's been talked about a lot, but also he just has the physical stamina to go do things, which I've always thought is like, that is the rare quality with politicians when you actually look at it. The reason why celebrity politicians often fail, and I thought Trump was going to fail, was because at a certain point, that schedule, when you look at a real like big boy schedule, it's up at 3:30 in the morning so you can get to this thing, makeup ready, talking points. You're doing a television hit at the ass crack of dawn, and then you got 3 pancake breakfasts, and then a thing, and then a thing, and then a thing. And some of these, especially when you're not humming, they're sad. There's only 4 people that showed up. You've got to ego adjust to be able to do it. Trump obviously caught fire, so there was more of a wind at his back, even in the early 2016. And Kamala was in no, she had a lot of enthusiasm behind her, but to do your mental exercise of what would have happened if Klobuchar was the person that got it, I don't think she'd be turning down interviews. I think she would have done but 7 interviews the second she got the nomination. I think she would have been campaigning for the nomination. So she looked like she was fighting for it. And why? She would have set an expectation for it. And Kamala didn't do any of that. And there was a story of her, and she was so nervous about going to a party that she made her staff.
She wasn't prepped. She wasn't prepped for it.
She made her staff recreate the party. Like she's Nathan Fielder. Mm-hmm. She had to do the rehearsal of a party that involved booze. And so she had to figure out how she could talk to these people. And it's like, that's a relatable thing for some people, but those people are not natural politicians.
No.
That is not how a natural politician seeks these things out. They're looking to go to parties, to go talk to people about how they're great and their ideas are great.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, you have to be an extrovert. Trump is an absolute extrovert. He loves the media. He loves to do things. He doesn't like to just sit around and hang out. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, he wants to go out and do something every day. He needs the attention, and, politics is great for that. And also, like, there's always something to react to in the world. And like, he is, always engaged in something. And so to me, it's a good fit for him. And I think it's pretty clear that for her, she just ran up against herself. When she got hit, unlike when Trump gets hit, Trump knows exactly what he's going to do when he gets hit. Okay. Yeah. He's going to hit back 1,000 times harder. He may even go overboard, but he doesn't care. Everybody knows that when you hit Trump, you're going to get hit back.
Yeah.
When Kamala got hit, they did focus groups. They decided they didn't like the answer, and they decided not to hit back. I mean, that's the story of the campaign. It's not 97 days. It's, oh gosh, how do we workshop an answer to this ad that we know is true and that we find it inconvenient right now because all the people we need to keep on board are now leaving us. That's what happened. That's the story of this campaign. This is the data here in Catalyst,
the prison trans ad, which famously they cut 2 ads, they workshopped them, and they were like, no, we don't want to run them.
Yeah. They're like, well, it doesn't really move people. Well, what do you know about that?
Yeah.
It doesn't move people? Saying nothing. Okay? When you say nothing, you actually allow them to leave. Do you feel that you can just bleed off 10% of black men or 16% of Latino men or 6% of young voters? I mean, what is happening here? You have to say something, and I don't care if it's not optimal, but you have to say something, and then you got to go crazy on it to shift the story somewhere else. And Trump is a master at that. He completely understands that when you're hit, you have to hit back. And he did.
This is your update, brought to you by TakePoliticsSeriously.com. It's where you need to go if you want to subscribe to our Substack. Don't know why I said it like that, and yet I did. Get 2 bonus episodes each and every week. Make sure that you keep money on my table so I can keep doing this for a living. It's basically $3 a week, for 2 bonus episodes. Come on. $1.50 an episode. What are you talking about? Come on. Less than that if you sign up annually. Come on. Let's get to the stories that we didn't have a chance to cover here. Talk about the big, beautiful bill. Senate committees will begin unveiling their parts of the GOP's massive tax and spend bill starting Tuesday. This is the same thing that the House did, where they went committee by committee, revealing things that are less controversial, and they're going to end this week on the most controversial stuff. So armed services, environment, commerce, and banking panels are going to release drafts throughout the week, while finance, which handles taxes and Medicaid, is expected last. Senate leaders aim to bring the bill to the floor by late June, pending review by parliamentarian Elizabeth McDonough. It's parliamentarian season, baby. She is currently vetting provisions under reconciliation rules. The Republicans have said they're not going to fight her, but they would like a chance to work the refs just a little bit. Trump is also actively engaging with key senators to shape the bill's content. One of the things that Senator Mike Rounds, says is an absolute non-starter is the House saying that they are going to sell some of our federally protected spectrum at auction. This is a big, big, big special interest fight. We might need to bring somebody on to explain it to us, but essentially it would be a way that you could get more over-the-air connections. Somebody, maybe a tech company, would be able to buy it, or a telco would buy it, something like that. Anyway, the current way that people are looking at it is all this comes out by late June. That would mean if they can do all their business behind the scenes, you could vote on it by late June. That means, depending on what changes, the House might be under a lot of pressure to put it on Trump's desk by July 4th, because he's going to want it by July 4th. Otherwise, this goes to the August recess, which is where I think most people believe it is actually going to happen. Let's get to another part of that big confab in South Carolina for the Democrats. We mentioned it early that we're not out of the woods, or we're not too far deep in the woods. It's a metaphor that involves woods. When it comes to Iowa, former DNC chair and South Carolinian Jaime Harrison said he felt sidelined during his tenure, and he was used mainly as a rubber stamp for decisions without real influence. This is during the Biden stuff. Speaking at the South Carolina Democratic Convention, he stressed the need for black leaders to hold substantive roles in shaping the party. Harrison led the DNC from 2021 to 2025 and said his ideas were often dismissed and internal operations must change. His comments come as Democrats regroup after major losses in November, including the presidential race. Former Vice President Harris struggled with key voter groups, including young men, minorities, and low engagement voters. Jaime Harrison was sidelined. He would not be the first party chairman to have been sidelined to the whims of the most powerful person in their party. But I think it is interesting that he's saying it. Jaime Harrison does not strike me as somebody who often pisses inside the tent. He feels like a party man. So if he is saying, I was sidelined, this is not good, anybody in my position should be treated better, it says to me that he doesn't believe anybody that used to have power is ever gonna have power again. And finally, President Trump is eager to personally speak to China's Xi Jinping to revive stalled trade talks, believing that a direct leader-to-leader call could resolve key issues. He also invoked the Defense Production Act to create more rare earth minerals in the United States. Very interesting. We mentioned up top that China might not be giving those over as freely as we are expecting. Skepticism, however, abounds by this strategy. U.S. officials cite deep disagreements over rare earth exports, fentanyl, and tariffs, while China views Trump as unpredictable and untrustworthy. Missteps following a tentative Geneva deal, such as renewed U.S. restrictions on Huawei, have further strained relations. Beijing resents what it sees as bad faith actions and media theatrics. Meanwhile, experts warn Trump's push for high-level talks may backfire, complicating long-term negotiations. But aides argue that there is little to lose in trying to force progress. And that, my friends, is how the Trump administration looks at negotiations way differently than almost everybody else that has come before him in the modern era. He does not view a call from the president as something that should be built up to for years. He just wants to send a text to Xi Jinping. You up? Hop on the call. Give me the magnet, Xi. I need the magnets. It's how many magic tricks are done, Xi. Many, many magic tricks. You think that it's gone, but it's not. It's just a magnet, and I need it. Don't make it disappear. TakePoliticsSeriously.com is where you need to go if you want to get this program. Get 2 bonus episodes each and every week. And now, back to Michael Cohen. This is a thing that I've kind of had in the back of my mind since like 2020 with the Dems. And I think that when you look at the numbers, it's hard to say that there's not an institutional problem that goes beyond their platform. Yes, persuasion was a problem, but a good organization should be constantly rewarding the ideas and the politicians and the people that are closer to those ideas. And the Democratic Party clearly does not have that right now. And part of the issue for me, and maybe we can put it together a package here, Michael, and so we can get invited to those gigantic luxury resorts where we can, just cash a check for a couple million to tell people common sense advice that the Democrats are doing right now. But
the abundance stuff.
Well,
from Ezra Klein. Yeah.
Well, that's at least a book. No, I'm talking about the stuff that.
Oh my God, things don't get done, even though we pay for them. That's bad. And it might lead to cynicism. Oh, wow. I read the whole book, Justin. Yeah. I read the whole book. And it's just this whole thing about, wow, we really can't believe that when we spend all this money and we get like 2 or 3 chargers for cars, that people might be angry about that. And they might become cynical about what government does and might want to be more conservative with spending. I mean, wake up. Congratulations, Ezra Klein. You have now lived the last 50 years in your book. Congratulations. I don't know.
Well, no, I'm talking even more about like, the $20 million effort to speak to American men. Or there's another one that has that got written up today.
Yeah.
Searchlight that was all about, let's bring back the Harry Reid philosophy, which, to be honest, look, I think you could do worse if you were the Democratic Party to say, let's ask what would Harry Reid do? Because Harry Reid was a pretty ruthless politician that was able to get things done.
And also a fighter.
And a fighter.
And an actual fighter, a boxer.
may or may not have gotten his ass kicked by the mob in his bathroom. Anyway,
likely. Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Anyway,
Allegedly.
I don't know. Hey,
rumored.
I don't want to say anything because I don't want to end up
allegedly rumored got beat up by the mob in his bathroom.
I don't want to be in a roadside ditch somewhere. Let's get off this topic.
I know. Let's stop. Please don't hurt us, Reed.
Look, it's tough enough being Jewish these days. I don't need to piss off the mob. I don't need that. No.
Here's my thing about the Dems. Imagine that you were doing a wedding, but the bride and the groom and the parents didn't get any say. Only the vendors got to say how everything would happen. What do you think the budget would be? Massive. You'd have 7 cakes. You would do the venue in a football stadium. It would be 9 hours. There'd be 4 bands. None of it would make sense. Everybody would be lost. It wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't be special and it wouldn't mean anything. And that to me is the Democratic Party right now. They are driven by vendors, and I'm including the groups in with the vendors, but not just them. I mean, all the middle managers. I mean, all of the people who are running the funds of the mega donors that all are these little princelings that have their own influence in the party. When you add up all the stakeholders, you have nothing that actually connects. And that's where, the Democrats right now, we had Kirk Beto on last week from National Journal, and he was like, hey, wild pitch, are we overrating the problem that the Democrats are in? They're probably history says they're going to come in and they're going to at least win the House. The Republicans weren't able to get the Senate candidates they wanted.
What if they don't?
But that's my thing, is I'm like,
what if they don't? Yeah.
I put it in the sense of a basketball series, because this was happening last week. I'm like, look, they're down 3-1. Like, yeah, they could come back, but will they? I don't know. I mean, like, what have you seen with them that doesn't? They're handing out tacos today, Michael.
I know. We've now hit a nerve here because now we're talking about the Knicks losing, and not coming back from 3-1. Justin, that's so mean of you to subtweet me that.
I was talking about the show. I was talking about the Timberwolves.
God,
I was talking about the Timberwolves.
Okay, good, fine, that's fine. All right,
but also the Knicks, who also suck. But
you have to edit that out. Here, let's stop for a second. You. You. The Knicks don't suck. They were a Final Four team. They were great. They just ran up against a team that can run, and we couldn't do it.
Who could have seen that coming? No, look, they're fine. They're fine. No, the Knicks. It was good to see the Garden excited, and Timothée Chalamet is a great super fan, so that's fine. Okay, good.
Yeah, he
good
seems like a nice kid. Yeah,
he does seem like a nice kid.
He does. All right, well, back to what you were talking about.
That's my thing is, you don't, and this is where I would be bearish on them, is that right now we're still having this high level conversation of like which activists are going to win and which $20 million position paper is going to be the most influential. Where, like, to me, the only thing that matters is which politicians are saying things that don't have anything to do with Donald Trump, that are just about what voters actually want and how they are going to be better served with democratic ideas. Because now you're going to face the least penalty for saying the craziest thing. Throw every idea at the wall, see what sticks, see what people are excited about. And right now, the only thing that people are excited about that are making them leave their house is oligarchy. And it's like, okay, well, mobilize that. Mobilize on oligarchy.
And those people are always excitable anyway. Like, they're just waiting to go out and yell at somebody. And so that's fine. I mean, both parties have them, right? And so that's not the answer here. The answer actually, and it's pretty obvious actually, whoever runs for president and gets a nomination, that's what the party is going to be next.
Yes.
Okay? Right now, the entire midterm is about Trump. So take the parts that that everybody hates about Trump and just run on it and say, hey, your costs are higher now because of tariffs. You live in a hurricane state. Well, guess what? The dude who runs FEMA doesn't even know that there's a hurricane season. Okay? I mean, just go on and on and on. I mean, like, that's what I hold them accountable. When you are an incumbent, this is what happens. And by the way, the sneaky part of this, election that we're looking back on for Catalyst was, hey, okay, there's a lot of data in here and all of that. But what happens in an election where, there are undecideds? they usually break against the incumbent.
Yeah.
This is essentially what happened, right?
Yeah.
So there were a lot of young voters who didn't have any real political ties, right? So they were movable. So they were persuadable. They were identified correctly. They were communicated with correctly, and they moved. So they were in a situation where they could be moved, and then they moved. In this situation, when we're looking at the midterms, we're looking at who is going to hold the administration accountable for whatever they've done and not done well. Now, over the past few cycles, that's what happens. The incumbent president loses seats. Now, here's the thing. What happens if the Democrats win the House by 2 or 3 seats? Do they actually have a majority? They might have a majority for Hakeem Jeffries. They might have a majority for impeachment. But really, what is the Democratic Party then at that point? It's just a bunch of people who are all over the place really mad at Trump.
Yeah.
So that's why you have to wait until 28, until you actually get, what these people are trying to make money off of, which is what is the party going to be?
What's the idea? What's the
right.
big idea?
Right. What's the big idea? And honestly, I think it still remains to be seen. The big idea is not let's go on more podcasts, or have our own podcast, right? I'm looking at you, Gavin Newsom, he, him, right? I mean, and to Buttigieg's credit, he is probably the best person in the Democratic Party to go on any podcast and talk to anybody. But what's his animating reason? But what's his animating reason for being president? What's the big thing that he's going to push us towards?
Yeah,
that is going to unify his party and then unify the country. I don't know that it's there. Kamala Harris seems like she's tapping out, right? Tim Walz was running for vice president for about 10 seconds and thinks that he's the guy, right? Yeah. And then there are other people who think that they may or may not be the person. I think to a real extent, if I had to sort of handicap this, it is probably going to be somebody not from the administration. For Biden's administration, it'll be a governor. I think that's probably their best move at this point. If they nominate Buttigieg or something like that, or even Harris, I mean, it's a wasted cycle. I mean, you need to just say, you know what, we got beat. All these people are complicit in what happened with how we got beat, including Biden being reportedly a robot. Which he wasn't.
This kind of gets back to both of these cycles, these next 2 cycles, the midterms most immediately, and then we'll see in 2028, depending on who the Democrats go with. But I don't think that we've seen the end of the fallout of the Biden stuff. I think the fact that there are still so many strident voices that are still pulling this, a charade down the street is a problem. But let's just look at the here and now. There is a fight that I think is largely going to help determine the Democrats' fate in the midterms about Medicare. They know that this big, beautiful bill is going to be, depending on where the wind blows, on how the information war is going to be fought, that's going to be determinative. The Democrats have owned the idea that Republicans are killing you by way of cutting social services. It is the bane of every Republican candidate my entire life that they can get hit for being callous on it. And right now, when Chuck Schumer, who is leading the Democratic opposition, which is where this bill is right now, and he's calling it the big one ugly bill that will cut Medicaid and will kill you, the response from the Republicans in the Senate is lying again. Here's what he said about Biden last year. And
how can you trust these people? These people cover.
When you can erode that. Mm-hmm. When you can erode that, and the Republicans are out here saying we're not cutting it, this is means testing, and they always say it. But if they are believed now, I think that's a huge tool that Democrats have wielded effectively my entire life that is now not as potent. And that's the kind of stuff where I look at it and I'm like, no, this isn't just Chicken Little. If Democrats can't message effectively on they're going to cut Medicaid and they're going to kill you, that's a huge problem. And maybe they will be, and maybe this will be moot, but that's the kind of stuff that I'm looking at now, is that the Republicans feel that their messaging is a lot more confident, because in the past, they just never want to deal with it. The Democrats will say, they're killing us, they're killing us, they're killing us, they're cutting Medicaid, everyone's going to die. And the Republicans will say, yeah, but look about American flags. They're great. Like they'll avoid the conversation. They don't go head on. They're going head on this time.
Well, and on top of that, I mean, they're doubling down, right? So Joni Ernst is telling everybody that everyone dies anyway.
Yeah.
Right? At in a graveyard.
So yeah, for those of you who have not heard this, Joni Ernst at a very animated town hall, which politicians don't do great in. There's a reason why the opposition makes them very animated, is because politicians get angry, they get pissy, they say things like Joni Ernst said, which was, somebody said, you're gonna kill us, and then she said, well, we're all gonna die one day. That immediately breaks out. It's over a weekend, so it goes viral on social media. Democrats make a lot of hay about it. And Joni Ernst, and this is something that is like our modern politics, doesn't say, hey guys, I need to clarify. You know, you might have seen a clip. I love our seniors and I will always fight for them. Instead, she's in a graveyard and she's like, I'm sorry I had to explain to you babies that death exists. Like, anyway.
I know, by the way, I'm sorry I didn't bring in the tooth fairy either. Yeah. Which is really amazing. I actually missed that the first time I saw the clip. I was just like, holy shit, this is really cringy. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. She's totally blowing people up on it. Oh, I get it. This is basically the Trump move, right?
It is. It's just don't even buy in the premise that you did a bad thing. If your point is that they were disingenuous and you said something crappy to them, then guess what? People will relate to you more that a disingenuous person got something crappy said to them.
Yeah. And that's what, and honestly, she can't get away with this in a different environment, right? Yeah. She's been given the permission structure and 3 elections, of Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. He lost the middle one, but
don't tell him
that. The fiction of him winning that one, is pretty strong in the Republican base anyway. So, anyway, the point being is, like, all the Democrats for about 10 years have been saying, we can't trust Donald Trump on anything. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, we now have this situation where we can't even trust that Joe Biden was okay enough to be president. Yeah. Okay. And everybody in the Democratic Party basically covered for him. Well, what's a bigger lie? A bigger lie is like whatever Trump is saying today, or that this guy was basically brain dead. I mean, what are we doing here? And so from my perspective, this goes to trust. If you can't trust the messengers, then you don't trust the message, which means you tune it out. So for me, I mean, I think it's an incredibly relevant piece of our politics right now, because it's reset how people look at the Democratic Party. They're saying, well, they enabled an old man to, at the very least, continue in office, if not say, okay, it's okay for him to be president until he's 86, after he already showed signs of decline behind closed doors. And then finally, George Clooney had to stand up to bring everybody to the party. I mean, think about that. George Clooney is essentially the hero of,
he's
Original Sin. He's Batman without the nipple buttons that he had on that terrible bat suit. Yeah, that was awful. Batman comes out and he's like, no, I'm going to release the press release. Dun, dun, dun. And then all of a sudden, dun, 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 and it's released, and all of a sudden we're now living in a different world. So to me, when you're looking at this, that is still an absolutely relevant piece of this. And I would say to you, in a debate, someone will say, hey, you know what? How many times did you meet with Joe Biden when he was president? Yeah. You're telling me he was fine every single time?
Not one moment?
Not one moment? Oh, by the way, so you met with him a lot and he was fine. Well, what about if you didn't meet with him a lot? Didn't you think that was weird? Right? Yeah. I mean, come on. I mean, at some point, someone's going to ask that question, whether it's going to be in the primary or the general. And so to me, it's a non-starter to have a Harris, Buttigieg et al. All of them get out of here. I mean, they're done. I mean, go do something else. Go. So
what do you think of the strategy on Meet the Press this week? You had the senator from Georgia, whose name is escaping me. Awesome. Preacher. No, the other
Warnock.
Raphael Warnock, who was asked about this, about passages from Original Sin. and he just hard pivoted. Hey, that's the past. That's not the future.
He's not running for president. Yeah.
We got to move on. Well, you never know with him. He's,
I don't know.
You don't think so?
I don't see it. I don't see us electing a preacher. I mean, I guess it'd be very different from a guy who banged porn stars. But I mean, we do sort of go back and forth, in our electorate.
We do. No, I mean, Warnock, I do think is a compelling candidate. I
don't think so.
To me, I don't think it necessarily hurts him per se because he was far enough away from things.
Yeah,
he was in his own election in 22. He can say, look, I wasn't paying attention to the president because I was too busy winning my election in, I
was too busy working for Georgia.
Blah, blah, blah.
I was too busy working for Georgia.
I was just working for Georgia.
Yeah.
The person that's going to be rewarded is the person that trashes the Bidens. And I've said this since the summer of 24. Like, this is a gigantic pinata of credibility that as Ashley Biden is out there, on Instagram talking about how everybody's being too mean to her dad.
Yeah. Leave my dad alone.
It's like, look, at a certain point, either you are going to react to this in the way that the world saw it, or you're not. You're going to keep acting like you are inside a party where nobody wants to say that grandpa farted. And it's like, it's a cognitive dissonance, and somebody will do it. Somebody will get up on that stage during the 3-night debate extravaganza for the first Democratic primary, because there's going to be 70 people that are running. They are going to say, everybody, you all lied, and you lied, and you should have been more honest with the American people. Right. And there's a reason why we are where we are. There's a reason why this thing Trump did, this thing Trump did, this thing Trump did, and this thing Trump did happen. And it's because you lied. That's going to happen. The question is who's going to do it, and the question is who's going to do it, who's going to be first to do it.
Yeah, this is the David Plouffe theory of elections now. He said, in the original sin, something to the effect of, at some point we have to start talking to people. We can't keep telling people that they don't see what they see.
Yeah.
Right? And so at some point, someone's going to stand up on that stage and say, you know what? All you guys, what are you talking about? I mean, and again, if you're a senator, a governor, you probably have a clear field here. Hey, look, I saw this guy once or twice at the White House. Yeah, I mean, he was old and clammy, but I didn't think he was totally vacant because I only had 3 minutes with him on a rope line, I mean, the last time I saw him, when he was talking in front of, people, through a teleprompter. Okay, fine. I didn't go to fundraisers with Joe Biden. I raised my own money.
Yeah.
And for Gretchen Whitmer, she'll be saying, I'm fixing the damn roads. I don't have time for Joe Biden.
Gretchen has not covered herself in glory so far. I don't think she is ready for prime time, considering her weird hokey pokey of like, okay, am I going to appear next to Trump? Am I not? I'm holding the binder in front of my face so they don't take my picture. Like that's not big league stuff. That is.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, I think it's early. She's even more popular now in Michigan than she was before. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think that those things can be reinterpreted. I mean, she hasn't said anything that will be used again. It's just a still picture. And she can be like, I was hiding myself because I was cracking up behind this binder about what a fucknut this guy is. I mean, seriously, I was trying to be respectful, without like humiliating this guy and just being like, I can't believe you're saying this in the Oval Office. I mean, there's plenty of ways she could sort of bat it back if she has any talent. And she does. But I mean, there'll be 30 of these people running. You're right. It's going to be an entire week of them. And my guess is that they'll save that kind of a hit when you get past that round and you're somehow down to like 5 or 6 people on one stage. You're not going to take that shot from like stage B.
I would take that shot now. I would say it now. I would be roasting anyone and everyone for doing it right now. And the reason why is because then the next thing you say, people are going to listen to. They're going to listen to in a way that they wouldn't have listened to you before because you said the thing. And we don't live in an environment where you got to wait until you're in the prime time window to make sure that people are done with dinner. And that's when you do the thing. You got to time it perfectly. No, the internet sorts it out. Everybody's constantly throwing a pile of garbage into the great internet machine, and the thresher brings the stuff that people like the most to the top, no matter what.
Now, come on. In a debate, there are moments, right? I mean, when Kamala Harris hit Joe Biden, on busing, nobody saw that one coming. She easily could have said that before she got to the big deal.
That's
and it basically
true.
floated her for a little while. I mean, Joe Biden, there's a whole bunch of these things that, are real moments that you want to engineer in those high pressure situations. And I think that, if someone asks you, well, what do you think about this? Well, I don't know. I don't feel comfortable with somebody from the administration running, and just let it sit, And then when you go up there, smack them hard. Like, I can't believe this. So what did you know and when did you know it? Like, that's what people actually want to know.
It's going to be a long time between then and now, though. I would find traction with it now if it is something that is going to be found traction with.
If you're actually running.
Okay, but I guess that's the thing.
Right
it's
now,
like everybody.
Are you running too early? I mean, you're going to wait at least until the calendar flips, next year. I mean, do you want to step on the midterms and just? I mean, to me,
you want to go out and raise money. You want to release a book. You want to start a new podcast. You want to do whatever you do, whatever the new thing is that you do before you do the other thing that you're definitely, obviously going to do. One more thing on the Biden books. The stuff that, and this is, I think, again in Fight, but it's also echoed in Original Sin. Part of the reason why
I haven't gotten to Revenge yet.
Revenge is really good.
Okay. I'm there soon.
The big thing with Biden wasn't even just after the debate. It was everybody just constantly asking him, go do more things. Right. And that's what to me, and he didn't. And so the question is, because he can't. And that's the difference between Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, by the way. When we're like, oh, Kamala's going to second guess her, it's the candidate that's going to second guess herself to be like, well, should I do Rogan? Should I not do Rogan? Maybe I should. And then she's going to get opinions from a million different people, and they're all going to have their own things. Joe Biden, in his heyday, would run to anybody with a microphone. Would trample a child if it meant national airtime. And that's what was damning about what happened after that debate, was that it was just like, oh, okay, so you can't come down to Congress. You had to send a letter. Like, anytime that they did do these Zoom meetings, they went horrifyingly. Like, he was just a cranky old man who was mad about everything. Like, I mean, at a certain point, that's where the question then becomes, what did you know and when did you know it? Because I just can't imagine that any of this was a surprise.
But Justin, I mean, it comes down to a couple of things, right? I mean, he couldn't do it because he just couldn't do it, right?
Yeah.
Kamala Harris couldn't do it because she couldn't do it. She couldn't do it. She couldn't, and she has all of her faculties. She couldn't handle it. She couldn't handle the freaking View.
I know.
I mean,
she blew up her campaign. She cut a Trump ad on The View. Yeah.
She cut the Trump ad on The View. Right? Yeah. I mean, forget about the transgender one. The animating reason for her to run. How are you different than Joe Biden? I guess I'm not.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so what are we doing here? Right?
Yeah.
So why are you doing this? Right? Because you haven't wanted this your entire life. So you haven't thought about why you wanted to do this. You haven't thought about this for longer than a couple of weeks because it was just dumped in your lap. You're like, oh, I just got this new project. I haven't really figured out what I'm going to do with it.
She was throwing a softball over the plate and she bunted it with her face. Like that was a absolute horror show.
And then walked back into the wrong dugout. It's awful.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, the big lessons going forward. All right. So to go back to the catalyst thing, to bring it on home. Are there lessons that Democrats can take into the midterms? Are there lessons that Republicans can take into the midterms as to the coalitions that were there in 24 and how they are going to morph for a lower turnout election like midterms often are?
Yeah. I mean, if you're a Democrat, you're looking at this and saying, okay, fine. There's probably a lot of voters who jumped into this campaign late. They saw some ads. They're probably not going to stick around for 26 because Trump's not on the ballot. Again, Trump's coalition sort of like disappears a little bit in the off season. But still, you have these problems that you have to solve with Black men, Latino men, and young people. And so to me, you have to figure out ways right now how you're going to communicate with them if they are in your district in numbers enough that really matter to your campaign. So to me, there's a couple of things. Number one, you feel pretty good because Trump's not on the ballot. So turnout's not going to be as high. So you're actually feeling better that
which is a total switch to your
which
point,
again is a total switch. Yeah. Right. So strangely, Democrats are looking at this going, yes, it's going to be a low turnout election.
Awesome.
Right. So we're not going to invest in a whole lot to get out the vote.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to make sure that we communicate to the people that we lost that, but it's okay that you voted for Trump. But remember, here's why you felt weird about going into it. We need to bring you home. So you got to find a way to bring people home to you. And that's going to vary by district. It's going to vary by state and all of that. And then, I guess you have to figure out ways to make sure that your people are just going to show up. But you have to be very, very careful and not do the same thing over and over again, which is knock on Trump doors and hope that they're going to come out. So you need to go to like 80%, 20%, as opposed to like 60-40 or 50-50, which is where they were in that campaign. And they were like, well, we need more people, so we need to go out and get them. No, you need to bring people home. And so from my perspective, like that's really the animating issue here, is that you have to get these young people back to voting for Democrats and remind them that Trump, may have said he was going to do a few things and then bring them back. But you have to give them something to vote for. I mean, to me, like once they're gone, it's very difficult. Then you're in persuasion land. You're not activating them anymore. So they actually have to run persuasion campaigns, which is actually more expensive, which means you have to get more money, which means you better. And
also, I don't know if they're there yet. I don't know if they realize why. I mean, like, there's a reason why syntax of the American mail is a thing that they're going to spend $20 million on, because they know enough to know that they missed the boat on it. But I don't think that they get it. I don't think they understand why. I don't think that they know. I mean, we've talked about it that the litmus test is can your candidate go on college game day? If they can go on college game day, then you at least know that you are speaking a language that men understand.
You know who can do it, who I didn't think who could do it? Timothy Chalamet. Timothy Chalamet was so prepared. I mean, I'm looking at this guy, he's like a waif. And I'm thinking, he's going to get his ass handed to him on this thing. And all of a sudden, he's crushing it.
Just ripping these college football predictions like he's Jimmy the Greek. Awesome.
He's absolutely annihilating it. So, I mean, can your candidate
run
do
Chalamet,
something like that?
Recruit Chalamet. It's
or
very simple.
Or sit down with him and
recruit.
say, how did you do that? And he's going to say, he's going to go, well, I know I look like this, but I'm a football fan. I'm a guy. Like, they need to not just study men. They actually need to recruit men to run for office. Actual men. I mean, I don't know.
Again, I don't know if they're there yet. I mean, the thing that I would say, the good news for Democrats is congratulations. You now have the low turnout coalition. And there's a reason why they're winning these special elections, or they're overperforming in special elections, because 11 people turn out. And it turns out that if you run an article in the Atlantic saying that this special election matters, all 11 of your hardcore voters are going to go out and they are going to vote blue no matter who. And that is good for you for midterms. I'm going to make one last prediction here. I think Trump's going to put himself on the ballot in the midterms. He's raising a ton of money right now. He has only one last ride where it's going to in any way matter electorally. He understands that it's going to be another impeachment that he's not going to like. Didn't like either of the last two impeachments. As much as he wears them as badges of honor, that's not his personality. He doesn't like it. I think he is going to run. I think he's going to campaign as if he was on the ballot. I think we are going to see the Trump rallies are going to be back. This is the one last hurrah for him. Because once it's not him at the top of the ticket, once it's Vance or Rubio or whoever it's going to be, like, I don't think he's going to care as much. That's when he goes to Bedminster. That's when he goes to Mar-a-Lago. He'll have his 2 or 3 big rallies where he'll be the main star no matter what. But now when it actually still does affect his life, I think he's going to put himself on the ballot. At least that's my hunch.
Well, yeah, why not? Right. I mean, it's going to happen anyway. So he's going to lean into it. I mean, I would also say this, that when you look at 28, the real question about this, and this is a question more for Patrick Ruffini than it is for me because he studied this and wrote a good book about it, is how enduring is the MAGA coalition? This is the same question they asked about Reagan. What would happen to Reaganism after Reagan left? What's going to happen to MAGA after Trump basically, steps down? And so I think, that's interesting to see. If you are Trump and you're going to somehow make the election about you, maybe you pull in some more of his people and you make it a higher turnout election. How weird would it be if Trump said, we need a high turnout election?
Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to go and I'm going to do everything and everywhere. And I'm going to go on Joe Rogan and I'm going to go everywhere.
Yep.
And I'm going to, look, it'll give him something to do. And if they win, then they will credit him and maybe listen to him for another 2 years before he steps down, because there's nothing going to be worse for Trump than being a lame duck. And so to keep power to run again, why not? That's smart.
From the Democratic perspective, if they cannot win back the House, just everybody hit the bricks. Turn over leadership in Congress, turn over leadership in the Senate,
and fire the consultants.
I don't know why the consultants are still here. I don't know why anybody who had anything to do with the last 3 elections hit the bricks, dude. Like what are you even doing?
I'm sorry, but Jen O'Malley Dillon turns out to be one of the big villains of, Original Sin. And, somehow, and Fight. Yeah. And Fight. Yeah. I mean, both of them, actually. It's pretty crazy that she is somehow able to hold on to that campaign because they're worried that she's going to somehow go rogue. Like anyone cares about Jen O'Malley Dillon.
Who cares?
Nobody, right? Nobody on the planet knows who she is. And somehow of course we know because we're nerds. But normies don't care. And Harris somehow holds on to her because she's like, well, if she leaves, then what's going to happen? Well, you're just going to have somebody else run the campaign because that's what happens.
Yeah.
And somehow she stays on. She's like, oh, you can't hit the president. And then Harris is like, I can't hit the president, as if she's been Jedi mind tricked, by Biden and Jen O'Malley. Look, there's reasons why people lose. Okay.
Yes.
I once told somebody this past week that success is a choice.
Yeah.
So is failure. Failure is a choice. And if the Democratic Party can't figure out how to talk to men, you failed as a political organization. You don't need $20 million worth of research to realize that you're talking to men wrong. You have the Catalyst data. The Catalyst data is saying in your own coalition, this is not even white men. This is Black and Latino men, and by the way, Asian men too. It's just that they're not in large numbers. There's your problem.
To quote Patrick Ruffini's book, Party of the People, his argument is that this is going to get worse for Democrats because
it has.
From
his book was published and
cohort,
it got worse.
From the racial cohort, specifically Blacks and Latinos, they have long politically identified more with issues in the Republican Party than they have the Democratic Party, as the Democratic Party has drifted left. What has held the coalition together is social pressure. And Ruffini's POV is that once the social pressure's gone, it's gone. It just doesn't that doesn't come back. You can persuade, you can rebuild the coalition, but once you can go to your friends and family and say, I voted for Trump, and you don't get screamed at and yelled at and nobody talks to you anymore, that horse is out of the barn. Now,
or you were screamed at in 16, you weren't screamed at as loudly in 20, and then in 24, they were like, yeah, I kind of get it.
I think I'm with you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, boy. Michael Cohen, man who wrote the book on the modern political campaign. Audio book coming soon. Coming soon, as narrated by yours truly. So that will be, we're very, very excited to put that together. Thank you so
Yeah,
much. Where can people find you?
Thanks so much. You can find me just about anywhere. michaelcohen.us. The book is at modernpoliticalcampaigns.com. And just for people who are now learning that Justin is going to be doing this audiobook, let's just say this. Let's take things back a couple seconds. When I was thinking about doing an audiobook and I had to convince my publisher to do it, which they gamely signed over the rights, which I appreciate.
Hell yeah.
There was literally a list of one person that I had. And I said, look, Justin was one of the first people to have me on the podcast way back with the first edition. And I said, damn, that's the voice inside my head that's reading my book. I wonder if he'd do it. And he said he would do it. And I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. This is great. So I'm really looking forward to that. And honestly, it may be the best way to consume the book. So if you are listening to this podcast right now, listening to him read my book, it will be a real treat for me. And I hope it will be a treat for you as well.
It will. And it'll be coming this summer. Michael Cohen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And that'll wrap it up for us today. Politics brought to you by you, everybody who supports us to take politics seriously.com. That's where you need to go. You want to get 2 bonus episodes of this program. Of course, PX3 is written and hosted by me, Justin Robert Young, for Dog and Pony Show Audio. Our producer is Will Saddleberg. You want to email me? It is theyoungamerican@gmail.com. Head on over to our YouTube. Politics. Remember to like, remember to subscribe, remember to comment. We are pushing out shorts, YouTube shorts, a little TikTok action. That's at Justin R. Young as well. I want to thank you to everybody who sent me a compliment at paypal.me/payjury, Venmo, Justin-Young-20, Cash App, PX3Cash, and anybody who has sent me anything in the mail. Post Office Box 153184, Austin, Texas 78715. I owe somebody an email. I have not sent it yet, but it was very, very nice to get some coffee from North Carolina. I'll be brewing that this week here in the Young House. Thank you. Of course, the only way that you can get our bonus content is takepoliticsseriously.com. Paying members get 2 bonus episodes each and every week. It's $12 a month. It's essentially $3 a week. $99 for the entire year makes it even cheaper. 150 episodes of PX3 for under $100. But if you would like to have your name read at the end of the show, then head on over to our Fundito fan funnel. I don't know why I went all F's. Still looking for a good name. By the way, if you are on this list, if you are a supporter at our phenomenal founding tier, I send an email to you guys. Justin at politics.com is what you're going to be looking for. I want to know if you want to change your name. So there we go. Here are the names that we have right now. L3PO, Peepaw, Scott, Middle-Aged Mike, Tom, Sarah Jeannie, Jeremy, Pro Idiot, Chiller Tomatoes. Oh yeah, it's Adam, Neil, AB Puppy, Dr. Whiskey, Michael, Fat Tony's PJs from New York, Will, The Borge B, Matthew, Matt, Andrew, Edwin, Sam, Andrew, Phil, Edison, Devon, Paul, a dog named Checkers, Gloria, my mom, who had a lovely retirement dinner for everybody who was wondering, Jerry, Trucker, John, Berkeley, Steven, and Zombie Duck. You want your name read? One place to do it. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. On Friday's edition of the show, we are joined again by Kevin Ryan. Kevin is now free to discuss openly the time that he spent in the belly of the beast of conservative media, an 8-year career throughout the Trump administration. What's real? What's not? It's a Kevin interview, so trust me, the media stuff isn't the entirety of it. We get into philosophy and all sorts of stuff. You'll like it if you like Kevin. If you don't like Kevin, I don't know what to tell you. Till next time, this is your old pal Justin Robert Young saying some shows talk about politics, others talk about politics, and still more discuss politics, but this is the only show that dares discuss. Oh, 3.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Dog and Pony Show audio.